Hello.
Hello.
We're just here.
We're just
awkward.
Jumping
Hey,
on
look,
live.
you just got notified of mine. My notifications are off, but I'm sure I got notified of you as well.
Let's just jump on the live and see who shows up and see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Hey, what's up, Maduno?
Maduna's
Aww.
here.
How are you doing?
Bravo.
Howdy. Hello.
Karen. Hi, Karen.
What's up, everyone? Thank you for joining. We just got started, so we're kind of letting people trickle in.
Yeah.
How we doing?
We're sitting here just chatting. Decided to include all of you in our chat.
So, should we introduce ourselves?
Sure.
Because I know, you go mostly by a username rather than...
I do go by Joe, but that is my real name. And I'm here with my two friends, and I thought we would just jump on a live. This is Nancy Hester and Sierra.
Hello.
And Sierra's in town visiting, and we're really happy about it, and we all got to get together, and I thought, let's go live and talk to folks.
Yep.
This is Nancy Hester, the Nancy Hester.
Is there a the?
One and only.
There's a bit of a the.
Yeah, I would say there's enough of a the there.
Yeah, well, people
Thou art the.
who have been following this would know your name from the podcast.
Good deal.
So
And from the Roy's Report.
And from multiple.
This is known slanderer, Nancy Hester.
There you go.
Known slanderer, Nancy Hester.
There you go.
Us.
There you go. That's the the. That's the the.
Joining us from a kitchen in Kansas City.
I know,
area.
right?
Very active. Also Instagrammer, Noel.
Mm-hmm. We've been posting about all the IHOP stuff since well before the Mike news broke.
We talk about IHOP all the time, and so we got together to talk
just
more.
bitter, offended, obsessed.
Yeah, so bitter.
Backslidden.
So bitter.
Angry people.
And see, this is my perfect time that I can say, since last December, Sierra had some posts that she was making, and she'd put a little hashtag on there. Not even a hashtag. You'd put a little note, and what was your note that you would say?
What was it? The chat room in the spirit of the gravesite of Uriah?
Oh my god.
Yeah. So this started, and you may disagree all you want, but this is my theory, because I think that, the Lord looks at intercession in a lot of different ways. And in this case, as I'm banging the table, in this case, I seriously think that Sierra was interceding in all of that. I think the Lord heard every bit of it, and I'm looking at where we are today, and I think she was definitely responsible for where we are today. There you go. I said it public.
Yeah, you did. That's a little heavy.
So how is that? I love that, and I honestly agree with that, and I think that's true. Can you riff on that a little bit, Nancy? Because watching her stories all the time and just reading what she was saying, I remember thinking this does feel like a form of intercession. This does feel
and she's going there.
Like prayer, right? This does feel like it's hard work what you were doing.
Yeah.
And so I just remember thinking this is a form of intercession.
Yeah, I totally believe it. And I think part of that was because you were, you need to come this way.
And I'm trying.
Oh, because you were, because you knew the people that everyone.
Oh no, it slipped again.
Oops.
Sorry.
You knew the people that are now involved in lots of things, and you really were crying out for them.
Yeah.
And you knew their stories before the rest of us didn't. Well, some of us didn't stories, but you knew their stories and it mattered. So you were doing.
This is going so smoothly.
Yeah, we're doing great.
It's just, it's fine.
It's because I keep banging the table.
There we go.
Just little candles and
stabilize.
And bottles of lotion. We're leaning the phones up on you. Super professional, like we are.
But yeah, I did, I still have friends on staff.
Right. And we still love people that are there.
Yeah. Deeply. And, that's I freaking flew out to Kansas City. But, for me, it kind of started, it was an accident almost. I was playing my favorite video game, And there's just the people that showed up to the chat that night were, it was someone I knew from a church I was at in Texas that's actually loosely affiliated with IHOP. Like Mike Bickle has been and spoken at a conference there. Mike himself told me that. So there was someone from that church, and we had both been abused at that church. I was spiritually abused at Antioch, Waco. And then there was someone I knew who used to sing at IHOP, Genesis, was in the chat. And then a friend of mine who's a fierce advocate, Celeste Irwin, who I think I've sent you her article. Anyway, it's who also is part of this place called The Network and has been advocating against sexual abuse in the network, was in the chat. And the reason Horizon's my favorite game is because it talks a lot about cult abuse and about people that are othered. And so like I was just like, well, with all of y'all here, let's just talk about how this game parallels our experiences. And so I renamed the stream Horizon Zero Misty Dawn because it's Horizon Zero Dawn. And it's ultra hard, so I renamed it Culture Hard Edition. And I just started like posting every night, like, let's come together and talk about the plot of this game and how it parallels controlling religious systems and our experiences in them. And then also started referring to that nightly coming together as the chat room in the spirit of the gravesite of Uriah. Because I was in the hospital in mid-December, about to get emergency surgery, and I was just like, if I die on the table, there's this stuff I'd been carrying that now everyone knows.
I remember
But
that.
at the time, people didn't know the story that was told, Gracious story, episode 6 of Heaven Bent, that I pulled you into that situation. I was in that meeting with Alan, and had, in the process of like that, just learned more stories of abuse at IHOP. And just that there was these things going on behind the scenes that were abusive, and that like, when we tried to go in good faith to get policies made, that next thing you know, like we go to Alan actually hears us, and now he's resigning. And that like was very indicative of like deep unhealth at the core. And so I started doing videos on Instagram as I was in the emergency room, and I was just sitting there like, why is it in the spirit of the tabernacle of David anyways? Like, he didn't get to build it because he murdered Uriah. And it's not like Bathsheba could consent because there was a power differential there. Didn't know at the time what I was saying, but it just ended up kind of being like, oh, yeah, I might have been onto something there. So.
But was that were the brainchild of in the spirit of the gravesite of Uriah?
Yeah, so that was on December 7th of 2022. And there's more like before, like I don't know, there's weird stuff where it's like I started posting daily on October 24th of 2022. I like reached out to Alan a year to the day before he posted his statement and was like, I just feel like there's something around the corner. I don't know what I believe about any of that. I just know that it happened. It was weird.
But we've talked, well, you've mentioned a few times, like around the time we started posting daily, and I'm always like, when was that? I was like, I don't remember, but I know it was a good year ago. And I do remember...
in that fall of 2022?
The fall of 2022, okay.
Ish. For me, at least. I don't know if you did it at the same time, but...
So before we decided to just click live, let's just make our conversation live. Yeah. What we were talking about was how we all got to a point where it's like, we have got to start speaking publicly.
Yeah. You put us in a group chat.
I did. That's right. You told me I need to meet her. You were like,
we already talked.
You were like, reach out to Nancy, and I was like, no, like I don't want to talk with anyone who's still at IHOP, because I was like, if one more person tells me you need to lean into the Lord, you're just angry and bitter, it was just like God's timing or whatever. I was like, I just don't think
she's not gonna.
I could handle that. Yeah, and you were like, she's not gonna do that. And then for whatever reason, I can't remember if I reached out to you or if you reached out to me, and then we met, and then we started a group chat, and then. But so 2021 and 2022 for me were like, I didn't have anything to hold on to in the way of, aside from Gracious story, I still felt like I didn't have anything to hold on to as far as, here's the abuse I can bring forward. Here's the story I need to tell. I can tell other people's stories, but like, I don't have a story of abuse like theirs.
Right.
And just going like, okay, like, just having that, like, I have to do something, I have to do something. And then I just really felt like I was posting into the void, like,
Yeah.
You had your, like, gravesite of Uriah, and it's like, okay, like, people were getting hurt here, but nobody cared.
It was mostly screaming into
Nobody
the void.
cared. Why talk about it? And I just had this, for no other language, of, like, burning,
No, I felt
ache
compelled, and I was like, I don't
Yeah.
even believe in feeling compelled by something outside of myself, but, like, I don't know why, like, it's time to talk.
I didn't feel like there was an adequate witness to the abuse people were experiencing at IHOP. Be it little T trauma, like they say, or big T trauma. I didn't feel like there was an adequate witness to what people like yourself and myself had experienced, and then obviously the more horrific things like what Gracia went through. So I just felt like someone needs to build that. Someone needs to, like, we didn't have a podcast yet about it. We didn't have people talking about it. We had scattered blogs and we had a few articles, and I just didn't feel like I had been well informed about what I was getting into when I joined a place like IHOP. And so I just felt like this burning desire to, like, build a warning, like a turn back here thing, and you were the only other person talking about it. And then we met. And that was over a year ago.
Over a year ago.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Spring
Perfect
of-
launch to say your podcast is coming.
My podcast is coming. Yeah. Yeah. It's just funny to think that, like, I had no idea that any of this stuff was going to happen.
Right.
I was focused on spiritual abuse and emotional unhealth and toxic environment. And
No policies.
we didn't find that out until
Do you want to
summer.
talk about that?
summer of last year. I mean,
Mhm.
I guess we can talk about it. It's hard because it's like, I remember around 20, it must have been 2020 or maybe even earlier. I was like, does IHOP have an HR? Like, do they have if you're a staff member, if you're being paid, like, do they have a system of checks and balances or, like, like whatever? And I was like, of course they must have something like that. And then sure enough, they did. Yeah. So then I decided to go in there and talk to them about what that was like. Yeah. I mostly wanted to talk about, like, how we each got to a place of, like, I have to start speaking and I can't stay silent anymore. And I guess what I needed was, I didn't have anything to hold on to. Like, I can tell someone else's story, and like we've all been talking and seeing, like, Matthew 18, I can't tell someone else's story, right? Because it's like, you go to the one person. Okay, so who's the one person that I can go to? Like, well, I can go to the leadership and be like, I had a bad experience here. And I did that. I did that several times.
Do you want to talk about that?
I mean,
Come on.
there's not a lot to say, really. Like, okay, yes, I'll say this. I went to the leadership of IHOPU.
And when was this?
I went to when I left, when I graduated, I talked to leadership then. I talked to leadership the whole time I was there. I was a student. I brought concerns. I said things. And then I went to human resources when I discovered there was a human resources. When was that, last summer? No, it was
Spring. wasn't it?
I went by myself to HR.
Was it spring or summer? Either way.
In
It was like it was across a few months.
Yeah, it was across a few months. I went to HR myself, I want to say in the fall of 2022.
That sounds right.
And then I went to IHOPU leadership in the fall, or in December of 2022. And just, said, I had a bad experience, and how can we make this right?
And, like, tried to go up the ladder on the appeals process.
Yes, I tried to go through the appeals process. So I went to HR, they gave me the appeals process contact information. So I set a meeting with leadership of IHOPU, and I experienced very much what is described in the advocate videos, where their goal is to manage narrative and to kind of, bring everything down. And that's exactly how I felt at the end of that meeting. Like, I had been brought, not necessarily like, well, no, I was demeaned in that meeting, I think a little bit, like, but like my concerns were brought down, my, like, literally I was told, we fixed that. Oh, we fixed that. We changed that. We don't do that anymore. We fixed that, we fixed that, we fixed that, we fixed that. And in the last year, I'm going, you didn't make those changes.
Mm-mm.
You didn't fix that. You're still asking people to live a fasted lifestyle that is crushing them. You're still giving people an identity that maybe isn't theirs or that they don't want. You're still burdening folks in a way that is damaging them long term. And I was told we got rid of those leaders who were bullies.
Because it was individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was individuals. We just grew really quick at that time. And I said, okay, well, so what happens now? so what now? Like, how can you, like, repair this for me, basically, is what I said. I spent a lot of money here, and mistakes are costly. So we're talking about all the mistakes that you made. Like, what can you do for me? And they basically said nothing. Like, we're not going to do it. Like, though they said, well, don't you feel better that we've addressed these problems? Like, everyone else who has come to us has said, well, we're just glad someone's fixing the problem. And I was like, that's not, like, no, I am asking you to, like, make some repair here. And they were like, no.
Everyone else feels better after talking to us, right?
Right.
You're the odd one out. You're weird. Something must be wrong with you.
Right. And they gave me 2 hours of their time and hoped
that should fix 4 years.
Well, they did say how to, like, help you have a fresh start after this. And I was just like, it's been 10 years, you know, it's been a long time. And I still feel very damaged by what I went through here. And this has really affected my family. And like, I want you to survey your students. And we talked for a long time about surveying the students and what that would look like. And we did that. And after maybe 15 minutes, I was like, when did you do that? And they're like, oh, we do that now. I said, so you didn't survey the students when I was here. You didn't survey my peers. You haven't talked to my fellow students, what we went through, what we suffered, and how we were, you know, burdened and everything. And they were like, well, no. Like, well, we've talked to the people who have come to us. Well, we can't do anything if people don't come to us. I'm like, yes, you can. So it was interesting that we talked.
Hence
the survey. We talked for a while, and they led me to believe that they had surveyed my peers when they had not. And they also told me, we currently survey folks, and we'll add those questions, and we think those are good ideas, and if you want to see some of those, let us know. And I did follow up, and I did ask to see some of those, and no, to this day, I have not seen one of those surveys. So
That's frustrating.
It is frustrating because, like, yes, you know, if there's any kind of, like, make repair for the horrible experience I had, like, that would be nice. But also, the hardest thing about walking away was just going, I really didn't have any idea what I was getting into. And I believe this still, that all the young people walking in there today are at risk of the same abuse. And for me, it was mostly spiritual abuse. So, yeah, I just got to a place where I was like, I don't understand why no one is talking about this. Because obviously we know now, more, like, tangible abuses that you can point to. But even though, like, mine felt so intangible and so difficult to name and discuss, but I still was like, I don't understand why people aren't talking about this. And now they are more, but yeah.
Not back in 2022.
No, not in 2022.
We were kind of treated like, you guys just need, even by people who are being loud now, you guys just need to get over this. You're obsessed with this. Like, just move on. And it was like, there's like the stuff I know, I can't just move on from, because that's a perpetual harm that's going to continue until certain people are removed from power. Because it's like how they deal with sexual assault and things that now, like, everyone knows about. But it was just like, the nature of this, I know enough to know that there is a corruption that goes up to the highest level. I can't necessarily tell the exact details of it, but I have seen enough evidence that it's not okay. There is something nefarious going on here, and it goes all the way up.
In 2022, I wouldn't have necessarily said that. I still was in the, well, just like we're talking about extreme negligence here. But I didn't have the confidence to say that until I talked to HR and asked and then that would have been the following summer. That was this past summer, right?
This past summer.
So then this past summer, I was like, there is no way that there's not
Which one? Oh, this one.
There's no way that there's not a handbook or a HR something. There's not a policies in place to address things like staff misconduct, and we wandered into HR and discovered that was true. So, I just said, Nancy, will you go with me?
Yeah.
And just ask, like, I just need to know what do you have on the books as far as a misconduct policy, not even sexual misconduct policy, a misconduct policy for your staff.
Yeah, how do we report?
And we were given a 2-page document that was, in my opinion, not near broad enough for an organization IHOP size. And I just, like, my mind is still blown by that. Right. I still am like, how do you have...
The date on it was...
2014.
Yeah, 2014. So it had not been updated.
It had not been updated. Okay, so maybe we didn't have the most updated one, but I'm pretty sure we
put
do.
It at 4 years before our meeting with Alan.
Yeah.
Regardless, it's very it's inadequate, and I just how large is the place now? Some 2,000 at least. Just that there's not a more robust policy on the books is still shocking to me.
Right.
And so
probably not 2,000 currently.
I was still at that point going, okay, this is gross negligence.
Right.
This is just gross negligence. We're just too busy. We haven't got it done. Which, and even now I'm like, I don't know. I guess I just feel like the folks currently at IHOP are saying to themselves, surely this is in place. Surely we know how to handle these things. Surely we know what to do when this stuff is reported. Like, what do you mean we don't? What do you mean it's not? What do you mean the structure's not there, the policy's not there, the training is not there? Like, what do you mean? Like, and I was still doing that in the summer of 23. Yeah. 2 or 3 months before
everything came out.
So how did you feel after that meeting, Nancy? Were you surprised to see what their policies were?
Yeah, or what they were not. So, but I think after Elizabeth's talk this week, though, we all realized, it was very methodical. It was very planned. They didn't have policies because they wanted zero accountability.
I still struggle to wrap my mind around it all. And
Right.
what still just, it was interesting about Elizabeth's interview was just her saying, like, in order for this to make sense, I have to consider or believe, or however she put it, I have to realize that Mike is the bad guy.
Right.
When it's like you need to,
along with others,
hold it in a hypothetical space, but at least allow yourself to explore that could be a possibility.
Right.
It's like there's so many people I feel like they won't even allow themselves to consider the hypothetical of that and see, like, okay, does this account for and explain for X, Y, Z? Like, what is the best possible explanation? That's where I'm like, I didn't know the nature of the corruption, but I had gotten to a place where I was like, the only thing where X, Y, Z factors of things make sense with them, like Alan leaving after we met with him to try and get a sexual assault policy, a more robust sexual assault policy in place for, not just for like if sexual assault happens, like, but like for to make a consistent process for leaders to walk that out with people, because what they were doing like was so abusive, like with not having someone go to the police, or even if they tell them to go to the police, they're telling them all the reasons why they're not going to be heard, why they have no case, they're not going to be believed, and like just stepping outside of their sphere heavily there, in a way that just intimidates someone into not wanting to report. And then just having the person go meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting to retell and relive the most traumatic thing they've ever been through, like just to get something better put in place. Like there's like no explanation for certain things with the way that they overlook abuse, with like the group of 5 coming forward, with not putting policies in place, with not caring more about the turnover rate. And like, I remember sitting in a section leader's house when I was still on staff, talking with her, being like, how many have to drown before we take that ship to port, because there's a saying at IHOP, building a ship at sea, and that's often the excuse for things not being like more.
We just didn't have the structure then. We just weren't, we didn't have everything in place. Yeah, we were growing.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, like you're a 20-year-old baby now, like saying like I'm a baby. That's why I wear diapers. Like, where it's like, like you're a 20-year-old ministry. Like, you've been doing this a while. You want to, when it comes to your marketing, you want to boast about your global reach. You want to boast about XYZ. You've got Dove Award nominated artists, Grammy Award nominated artists coming out of this place. You've got massive reach, $1 million budget, a global streaming platform on TV, but you're weaponizing incompetence. Like, no accountability, because we're building a ship at sea. Like, we just ragtag putting this together, jury rigging it on the fly. And I was just like, how many need to drown before we get to land, offload everyone, and then reconstruct everything without people being in danger of falling into the water and dying? Like, how many have to be injured before you consider that maybe there's like red alert going on here that needs addressed? Like, how many people are disposable before you admit that to yourself?
Well, this is why I felt like people needed to get together and build something, or start talking, or provide a platform where we're safe for people to start talking, because if you don't know the people are falling off the ship at sea, if you don't believe that that's true, we are losing people.
Yeah.
People have left the ministry. They have left the church. They have left the faith, like, in many cases. And they're
with deep trauma.
Yeah.
Right. They're either dismissed for losing their faith, or they're silenced in general, or a bunch of us left just horribly confused. How did this happen? How did I have this horrible experience in this wonderful, holy prayer ministry? And I think the assumption is the accountability is there, or we don't need the accountability. Everybody here is just so wonderful and godly.
Well-intentioned people.
We're not worried about anybody. Yeah, we don't, like, and even that just blows my mind. It's like, you need structures. You need even basic, like, who do I report to?
Right.
But yeah, I think, because that's what I assumed. Like, I never, and it wasn't until, I want to say 2020 or 2021, when I was like, oh, there must be an HR. Like, there must be it's just funny to think that, like, I one day was like, oh, it's a huge ministry. It's a huge 501c3.
Right.
Which, actually don't think that it is. But for a time, it operated as a 501c3. A 501, like, surely there's a board and an HR. And it's just funny to think that, like, I thought that wasn't there, or maybe that wasn't there for a long time, because of the assumption of, like, we don't need that.
Right.
Like, everyone here is on a mission and singularly focused and, praying all the time. We're not worried about each other. We're not in that way. We're not looking out for each other in that way. And that is so dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Which is the point. We should be looking out for each other. You would think.
That's a whole conversation. But
and it's
the first commandment first, like, never mind the second. I could go off.
Well, yeah. People who are here that we forgot to say hi to, that's because you've been flying across this, ask us questions if you have any, because we are just riffing and decided to share our conversation with all of you. And just trying to establish or trying to,
It's okay.
Well, what I was fussing about before we hit live was, why people in leadership positions didn't sound an alarm.
Yeah.
When they learned things.
Right.
And asking myself, why didn't I sound an alarm?
Right.
And
usually people did sound alarms, and
I just didn't believe it when I read the article about Brad. I just didn't believe they had allowed him to stay. And I had left.
Right.
So it was kind of like, why do I care what happens there? I mean, I care what happens there. And then I was like, oh, I do care what happens there. So, and I'm mad about this thing that they let Brad stay, which is in the article. Well, let me just find out if that's true. And then that was the thread that I pulled. It was like, oh, that is true. And still just breaks my brain to think about. Like, but yeah.
But I think that's the thing to like, it's a real hard thing to wrestle with. I hate that language, but like just like the silencing culture that has been talked about in the AG videos and that Elizabeth Herder talked about with them like doing a series on gossip and Matthew 18. And I remember when it was the Joy Boys, they were preaching on false grace and like all these things where it's like they're using their massive platform to bully anyone that tries to talk out of, and to like literally psychologically manipulate, like the way Elizabeth in the interview, Elizabeth Herder, who's an AG member, did with Blaze and Christina on Wake Up and Win, just talking about like there was a months-long series of sermons on gossip and Matthew 18. They had a whole all-staff meeting where they got up and did a Q&A where they just went on and on and on telling stories that were the situations that were literally happening. And like,
which I haven't read this yet, but I'm told that's a big part of the book Bully Pulpit. How pastors will get into the pulpit and I'm guessing bully people with it. But by like telling stories and not telling stories, people in the congregation are like, oh my gosh, he's talking about me.
Right.
Like, what a way to bully people. Like that's, the Austin posted all those Matthew 18 videos.
Yeah.
When you know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like, that is chilling. That is...
Yeah. Which we even, like, I remember...
But it silences.
Midsummer, the three of us, we mentioned this already, we were in a little group chat talking because we couldn't find anyone else that wanted to talk about it, like, to the degree that we did. And you messaged us on September 1st. Like, hey, did you see what they uploaded on Mike's Instagram? And it was one of the first posts about Betrayal.
Oh my gosh,
oh, yeah.
I remember that.
And we knew that Heaven Bent was coming out.
Yep.
Because I think, did we all three talk to Tara Jean at least a little?
Sometime that summer was when we started getting the
preview.
It's gonna release this fall, and then later we got
Yeah.
previews. But that summer it was finally like, okay, it's coming out this fall, and I was like, what? And like, I didn't even know she was working on it.
Yeah, like she announced the actual release date at the end of September, like days later. Yeah, I think. And so like we knew that this was like gonna be coming soon, and we start seeing this betrayal content. We didn't know necessarily the Mike allegations were coming forward, but there was like rumblings of like, I wonder what the reaction to this podcast is gonna be, like if she's reaching out to them for comment, do they know it's coming? We knew they knew it was coming because there was rumors flying. It was a whole thing. But like it was just like, this seems pretty pointed to try and get people to not want to listen to whatever's being said.
Right.
Coming soon. Because it's like, look at what Mike's posting. He looks frazzled, and it was just post after post after post. I think they're still up because his Instagram's back up now. You can go back and look at it. It was like just talking about betrayal, and over and over and over, leading up to then like later after the allegations came out, looking back at like everyone's talking about that October 20th sermon, but it was like, there was so much before that October 20th sermon where he was prepping it.
I remember what he said in one of them because I saved it. Because you were like, watch this. And I was like, oh. And it's hard to listen to Mike after you've left. It's hard to hear that preaching. It's hard to hear that lingo.
That very unique voice.
Yeah, it's hard. And like, I'm watching him talk about betrayal. And it was John, I don't remember, John something. But I remember talking with someone about it on TikTok. So maybe I was on the other guy's thing who like reposted, like, this is great. And I was like, no, it's not. Like, and here's why. And I said, the line was, betrayal is like the hardest thing a Christian can go through, or like, betrayal, it will get you deeper into the heart of God, or something like that. And I just was like, that's not true. Like, that's not a thing. Betrayal doesn't necessarily like, I can't remember exactly how he put it, but it was just Mike's classic twisty way of talking and preaching. And I was just like, no, it's not. And here's a verse, and and I was just like, that's not what that word means. I'll have to go back and look at it again. But I was just like, no, like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't add up. Like, or you could put a whole bunch of different this could send you further into the heart of God, or this could bring you closer to God. But like, betrayal's not the one thing that will like bring you into closer relationship with. Yeah, that was just so. And now looking at it and going, oh, and I might be quoting him wrong. It might not be exactly how he put it, but like, but since everything has come out, and the teaching at IHOP was always like this, go deep in God with that. Take that to the Lord. You know, explore that in your secret place. Like, find the secrets of the Lord, or mine for the, you know, it was always like, go somewhere or go to the prayer room and stick your nose in the Word and ignore everything going on around you. So like, pay attention to that. Like, we've seen so much of that. We've seen mostly that from the pulpit, from IHOP, since this all happened. Take it to God, take it to the Word. You know, Rita Springer was saying the same thing on her podcast the other day. Other leaders in the body of Christ are saying this. We just need to be praying harder. And I'm going, actually, maybe we need to write a policy. Maybe we need to write a policy and admit we've never had or let alone followed one.
Right.
Yeah. I think just what you... Oh, were you about to say something?
No, I was just going to say, June asked, like, where is Austin's? Because we quoted Austin's.
He's at Starcasm on Twitter, or if you want to call it X. It's Twitter. I think it's STARCAZM at Starcasm.
I'll send it to you, June. I've been horrible with Twitter. I can't find anything on there. Every time I type in someone's name, I'm like, how do you not know this is the person I'm looking for?
Is it on Facebook and Instagram though?
I don't know if it's on Facebook
All the
or
videos?
Instagram.
Okay.
I've only seen Austin's stuff on Twitter.
Okay.
We'll get it to
you. Well, there you go. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't really answer that. I know somebody else was answering it, but I didn't know.
If that's the only place that's posted, though, that's good to know, because a lot of people aren't on Twitter.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a tough watch.
Yeah, and it's a solid, like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes of clips.
But it was
which is good news for some people, because I thought it was entire messages. Like, I thought, whoa, that's way too much for me.
Oh yeah, no, it's
so,
like each clip is like 2 or 3
it's little
minutes.
blips, which is
was
a
it
good
2021 or 2022?
It was, I think it was October 2021, because it was the fall following when all the Luke Bickle stuff was happening.
What is so funny about that?
Oh, that's so funny. I thought it was last summer.
Was it last summer?
Oh, I don't know.
It was.
Obviously, I haven't looked at.
Maybe it was 2022. Elizabeth in the podcast with Blaze said it was like as they were starting to bring that stuff to Mike.
Okay.
Which is why they knew, like, this was literally in response to everything that we were just bringing to you guys.
Whether it was 21 or 22, the reason I think that's funny and interesting is because those were the two, like, kind of years for me when I was like, okay, how do I put this behind me? How do you resolve conflict in a Christian way? Okay, Matthew 18, do. And it was like, here's the, like, literally that's what I was doing, like, on my own, like, personally. Like, okay, who's the person that hurt me? Well, it wasn't really a person. It was kind of this whole institution. So that's why I started, like, setting my meetings or whatever. So when Austin posted those, I was like, I was literally in my house going, like, how do I follow Matthew 18 perfectly? And Mike is, like, at FCF, like, teaching people how to follow Matthew 18 perfectly.
Yeah.
And when I, like, took most from it was parts of Mike's preaching that I did love, that I did appreciate, that I did think were good, was seemingly him trying to empower young people with that push delete thing. Like, God doesn't discount you, right? Like, you're still in the kingdom. He would say that all the time. You're still in. Like, you're still in this. Like, keep going. But not when it comes to Matthew 18. The second you've done anything that smells like, you know, like gossip or whatever, the second you screw that up, like, nope. Done.
Good, you have no voice anymore.
Dead on the table. Yep.
The worst part about that frustrates me, like, if you go, so we're both streaming live at the same time, so this is @_ by their fruit, and mine is @SI_NO_EL. And so if you're on my Instagram and go back a few posts, you can see I literally, like, because I was so frustrated when I started speaking out of, like, people, it doesn't matter if you've done step 1 and step 2 of Matthew 18. As soon as you hit step 3, you never did step 1 or 2. Because step 3 is go public. And that's, like, I literally have a document. So Heaven Bent released a bonus episode today about a meeting with what are being referred to as the Group of 5 that occurred in April 1st.
No way.
April 1st, I'm pretty sure, of 2014.
April 1st, everybody.
It was almost exactly 10 years ago today. I think maybe that's why she released it today.
Maybe.
She likes anniversaries.
She does. She does.
We love you, Tara.
Thank you, Tara Jean. So that came out today, but there was a report released the following October because they met with a mediation team called the Midwest Ministers Fellowship and then members of the ELT, like, you know the names. Some of them are heavily mentioned in the episode, and particularly Stuart. Anyway,
I thought you hadn't listened to it yet.
I have listened to the first, 30 seconds.
Okay.
It's like opening minute at double speed. So opening 2 minutes I've listened to, but I'm saving the rest. And so in the report, I'm pretty sure it's page 11 of the report, Mike talks about Matthew 18, and Mike himself, and I've posted like a screenshot of this in my posts if you scroll down on my Instagram. He talks about step 3 is going public. So I'm like literally like doing my like posting daily thing, being like, God, they're gonna sue me. I'm just like, I'm doing what you said to do. You know, being friends with you. Stuart told me to. And now he probably regrets that. But it's like, I tried to do what they wanted. I did the meeting. I met one-on-one with Alan, and then I pulled you in, and we brought our issue to Alan, and Alan tried, and they did not put an adequate sexual assault policy in place, and he resigned. I'm not saying that's why he resigned, but the timing is a little suspicious around that and the Brad Tebbett stuff, so you do the math. And so it was time to go public, and now like all this other stuff's out, and so I feel a little less weird about that, but like but even if you do step 1 and 2, it's never enough, because there's like, and they've hammered it so hard home that you should never hit step 3, because you should assume that they heard you on step 1 or 2.
And look how well that silences everyone.
Yeah.
Right? Because how many years have the two of you been holding that story? Like, I have known that story.
It took years of work behind the scenes just to like, because before I could go to meet with leaders, I was like, well, I need to find leaders who will hear me. So I was going to a bunch of different leaders. Like, I've got a summer-long text thread with Dave Sliker, and he just wasn't listening to me. He was just like defending the system and stuff. And it was like, I got sliked for a whole last summer. And then like did meet with Alan, and I did decline to meet with Mike. And I don't regret it, knowing what we know now. I didn't know all that at the time, but I didn't feel comfortable meeting with Mike. I thought he was going to just say what he thought I wanted to hear, and nothing was going to come from it. And I stand by that.
And this was largely what I was told when I met with leadership at IHOPU. We just can't do anything if they won't come to us. They have to come to us. And I was like, they won't. Like, nothing physical happened to me here. Unless you count, like, bodily damage from fasting. Like, and I was like, and I had a really hard time coming in here today. A really hard time.
Well,
the separate
meeting coming in here. Emphasis on coming in here. They want you to come on their property and meet with them in their domain where they're comfortable.
You're the chef.
And you've been traumatized.
Well, they're also so busy they don't have 10 minutes to get outside of those walls anyway. But, like, and just saying, like, you know, nothing that seemingly traumatic has happened to me here, and you saw me at the one meeting. I was physically shaking.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be here. Being in this environment is difficult and painful, and I said this to them too. I was like, well, you guys are really intimidating. And I didn't even mean that in a like, you're jerks. You know, one of them is a huge jerk, but I was like, you guys are intimidating. So to just be like, oh, we just expect people to come to us. I'm like, yeah, but you like, you know, when you set yourselves up as these, you know, righteous, like 20 years of prayer authority figures, a 19-year-old kid isn't going to just walk into your office and be like, I got problems. Like with you, you know, they might tell you their problem. Yeah, so I just was like, your system does not work here. It should not be this hard to find a leader to talk to care about, to help you, period. And certainly not with the situations that you two were trying to bring. And so I reached this place where I was like, all of those things obviously are horrible. But I felt like from the day that I left to now, I had met so many people like you, Sierra, who just like were just really, really having a hard time with what they experienced with like bullying. Why don't we care about bullying? Like with unhealth, emotional unhealth, like, and just, you know,
because the Lord cares about bullying, and the Lord definitely cares about our mental health.
Yeah, and just feeling like people who left had been silenced. And even finally going like, oh, well, look how difficult this is with this whole like Matthew 18, and then you have to follow it perfectly. If I don't follow it perfectly, no one will listen. I will be discredited.
They feel clean before God for not listening and just writing you off.
Yes, and if no one listens, people will continue to get hurt. So that was my like.
So if I don't do this perfect, and that's what Elizabeth talked about, if we don't do this perfect, we blow our chance. And this story no longer has an advocate.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Because the biggest point that everybody's doing is the only reason people are talking is saying, I don't want to watch this happen to another person again.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the goal.
Yes.
No, it's because you're offended.
Love in their
it's
heart.
because you're bitter. It's because you're unforgiving. It's because you just want to excuse sin.
We are so bitter, we don't want to see anyone else get hurt.
Or what was the most recent one? I'm under a spirit.
We're under this heavy spirit of bitterness that wants to take care of others. Oh, I got a thought, but I lost it.
I want to hear you talk. Go off.
Go off. What am I going to go off on?
Just start talking, see what comes out.
That might be scary, right?
That's not
Everybody
scary. That's what I want to see.
Well, Nancy, the best thing about talking with you and getting to know you is seeing a older person.
Sorry, I interrupt. But Teresa says, a lot of us left thinking we were the problem.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, ladies, hi, Rich.
And also, hi, Rich.
Sorry, we haven't said hi to anybody.
And also, earlier, Ben Kylan said, I don't know if I know how to pronounce your name, but was talking about, like, there's so much bullying.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, there really is. There really is.
I was going to say it's been so refreshing talking to Nancy to see someone having been in ministry as long as you have and having been at IHOP as long as you have, like, because any other authority figure that we talked to or that, like, my friends talked to really did a lot of dismissing. So to see someone like, yeah, this is ridiculous. Like,
right.
Or just, like, you've expressed a lot of shock also.
Yeah.
At like,
the first time I talked with you, like, the look on your face as soon as I said that I felt like the rug had been pulled up from under my feet. You were just like, so many people have said that exact phrase, and you were just in and invested and believing me right out the gate.
Right.
And
it's
I was
still
just like,
shocking to see
I
that.
didn't know what to do with that.
Aw, that's sad.
It's shocking to see.
That's so sad.
To be taken seriously.
Yeah. And you have to be taken seriously. And I think the only reason I was taken seriously is because not every time I turned around, but you know what I mean? Like, just processing the bullying. Me personally being bullied, you know, and processing that, you know, there were men that would call me into meetings and they, you know, all of a sudden you'd be standing there going, wait, what is this meeting about? You know, and I think with so many younger people, you know, I had this one meeting where, you know, and it was a one-on-one, and rarely do I tell stories that are one-on-one, but I'm in a meeting and this leader is telling me something that's absurd and ridiculous. And I just kind of stood there and I was like, I don't really know how this is your authority to tell me this. This was not something about work. This was demanding that I do something. Or not do something. And I was just like, this is like on my personal time. This is not even within
don't get me started.
This organization, and you're going to forbid me to do something.
You need to talk to them like they're 15 years older than you.
I know. So, you know, forbidding me to do something. And it was like, okay, you're going to forbid me to do this. And I just stood there and I thought, I don't have to stay in this meeting. You know, I think, you know, with Blaze talking about when you're younger, you stay in these meetings, right? Well, I wasn't younger, you know, and I just looked at him and I went, okay, meeting's over. I mean, I was just like, that's it, I'm done. And I said, one, let me make it clear to you right now. I was like, I know that the Bible says you're supposed to honor your elders. I was like, I'm older than you, dude. And then I was like, two, I know the Bible says you're supposed to honor women. I was like, I'm a woman. And I went, meeting over, and walked out the door, because it was like, No. But I think so many times when people are younger, they sit there thinking, no, I have to subject myself to this because this is someone who's older. This is someone who has authority. This is someone who I need to be listening to. And, you know, we grew up, you know, we did the authority thing, you know, and all that it took. And it's like, good grief, but you don't ever really stop and think, what does that system look like when people are systematically being mistreated? what does that look like when it goes rogue? It's like, oh, good grief. I don't even think John Bevere would go, yeah, I've got my stamp, I'll put my stamp on that one. I think even he would go, no, run out the door, get out, hurry and get out. So, yeah, and I don't know who that is.
Rich said that's why they target young people.
That's why they target young people. So I don't know. There were people that were there that were kind of shouting, wait, this doesn't sound right. But, like us, then it was like, you need to leave now. So
I remember one of the first times we talked, you said, like, just speaking to the age thing. Because, like, you just naturally defer to people who are older. At least I do. A lot of people do. Like, I just would not, like, there's just a respect thing there. And absolutely in the church. And you were like, you said something like, it's one thing when you're my age and you go to a church or a ministry and it doesn't work out. This crushes you when you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never heard anyone, like, put words to that. Like, because obviously we were crushed. Like, we were crushed by these things. We were so, like, disappointed that things didn't work out. When it's like, oh, yeah, like, if I had been 35 and had moved to another state and it didn't work out, it's like, you're right. I probably wouldn't have been as crushed. It's because I was 22.
Right.
Like, that, yeah.
But in actuality, it was like someone had a hammer in their hand and they were whacking you with it.
You had too much strength, Nancy, Rich is saying. You scared them off.
No, I don't think so, because they're still alive and kicking now, aren't they? So, they're still doing it. That's the sad thing now, isn't it? So, but I keep telling everyone, I really wanted to be an advocate for other people. So, just with everybody getting out there and sharing their story, my story is most definitely coming soon. Because, I want to talk about the first time I heard an entire room of leaders tell a bold-faced lie. And not even a bold-faced lie, like a series of lies that...
Can we get a little preview?
Did we talk about that the other day?
Did we?
I think we did.
Did we?
Because I remember, because we were...
Get a little preview.
Preview. Give us one of the lies. What was the bold-faced lie?
Oh, no, it was just you're in a whole room of people and it's like, hey, we're going to pray for this person over here. And, there was just this grandiose new position that they were leaving to go do. And, it came time to pray for them. And, I jumped up, I went up there and prayed with all the leaders. And Jim didn't, because he knew the story, but he had been sworn to silence and secrecy. Anyway, long story in that one. But, in actuality, this person was having an affair and no one was going to call that out. And it's like, and I didn't know that until several weeks later. Someone's asking, hey, how's this person doing? And I'm giving them this grandiose lie. And then they literally looked at Jim and went, what is she talking about? And I'm like, no, I'm talking about, they just told all of us, 50 people in a room, this is the scenario. And this person looks at me and goes, that's a lie. And I was like, what are you talking about? There's no reason to make up this lie.
Yeah.
None. Why would you make up a lie? Why wouldn't you just say, this person needs us to pray for them? Why wouldn't you do Matthew 18 and actually hope that they repent and come back to the Lord? That's the point of Matthew 18. The point of Matthew 18 is not, we're going to make it public. The point is, in each of those steps, the Lord is hoping that the person is going to come back into a relationship with them. That's the whole point of it. And it's like, you didn't even do that. You told this massive lie and covered this huge big thing. And it was like, that is sick, people. And if you ask anyone about that human today, they're still going to tell you the lie. It's still not truthful about the situation. And it's just like, okay, so we're going to cover this person. And what's the point of that? They're still in sin. Still deceived, still in sin. There's no sense in that.
But if you break Matthew 18 by doing the cardinal sin of talking,
then you're a gossip.
Suddenly you don't get any cover.
Right? No,
they're gonna find whatever weakness they can exploit about you and drive that narrative home and say, well, so and so is gay, and so they just actually want to live in sin, and they're nothing else they say matters, or like whatever it might be, like they're a slanderer or whatever, like, or
if you're a 25-year-old young person going, how on earth am I going to confront someone like Mike Bickle,
Right.
or Stuart Greaves,
Right.
or Dave Sliker about something I've seen that I'm like, I don't know. I need to run that by someone first. Oh, but that's gossip.
Right.
So it's like, you're on your own with the limited tools you have as a 20-something. You're going to get smacked, you know, you're going to get run over. Like, there's no coming out of that like, oh, yeah, like, I'm going to listen to you calling out my sin. I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Which is the power culture in silence.
Yeah. Powerhouse pastor said narrative management is greater than biblical humility.
Yeah, that's true.
Welcome,
Sadly,
Heaven Bent Pod.
Heaven Bent, Tara! Hi!
hey, we were just bragging about you
We were.
and your timing and your anniversaries.
Well, speaking of Heaven Bent Pod and the group of 5 today, one of the things that was said about them was that it was just a theological dispute. And that they were bringing forth a list of grievances of like repeated behaviors that multiple people had experienced. But a lot of people discounted it because one of the things they brought forward was disagreements with the eschatology and a desire for academic freedom for students and staff.
4 basic policies that would exist in any other large organization, workplace, school.
And clarity on what doctrines people had to believe, or what, like where was that line there? And so people said, because one of the points was like disagreements with some of the eschatology, the whole thing got made out to be a theological dispute. And it's like they just find one thing where they find something that can discredit you, they take it, run with it, slam it drive it into the ground, and then like there's no reason to listen to that person and whatever they have to say doesn't matter. Tara Jean is a witch.
And we and
Look at that witch coming on here watching what we're saying.
And we fell for it, hook, line, and sinker.
We love you, Tara.
You know, with the group of 5, we fell for that.
Yeah, a lot of people did. And a lot of people speaking out now were the ones putting some of those narratives forth.
Yeah.
And like it's a thing that happens that like, and I was still on staff when the group of 5 stuff was happening. I went to lunch with Nathan. I met with Richard, worked with him. Like, I was rubbing shoulders with them in certain settings, even though I was still on staff. And like, I was then a danger because I knew their stories. Like, and sorry, are you done?
No,
you're fine.
When I learned of that mediation, it must have been around 2018 when I learned that had happened. I was so upset that I hadn't been a part of it. I was like, they gathered 100 stories. I would have submitted mine. Who were these guys? Why wasn't I friends with them? Like, I was because like, I just didn't even my brain was so fried. Like, Rich made a comment earlier just about how like we were just like used up pencils walking out of that place. We were so burnt out and so exhausted. And you couldn't admit that, right? Because that meant you couldn't hack it. I was so burnt out and so exhausted, it literally took years for me to be like, oh, I need a confrontation. And then to realize a group of young men had already done this.
Yeah.
I wish I had been able to include my story. And the first time Blaze told his story, when he wrote a blog that went viral, did he go to Star? Yeah, 2015. I was like, this is it. Somebody's finally talking.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the language at the time for spiritual abuse and emotional abuse and just the flat out burnout and overburdening and overwork for like, you know, what happened like to me and my peers I felt was wrong. And so when Blaze like finally came out, I was like, okay, like this is gonna do something. And then like years later I went looking for the blog, I couldn't find it.
It's gone, but that same silencing culture, Blaze's thing comes out. My friend Joanna has a blog post that came out around the same time as Blaze's, which you can still find. Look up Joanna IHOP story, I'm sure it'll come up, something like that. If it's about like needing a day off and not getting one, that's the one. But like Blaze thing comes out, IHOP follow up to dispute and tear down the narrative. They get Johnny Youssef to write an article and Charisma publishes it. And he like talks about how lovely it's been working at Gladheart with Diane Bickle, and like he's only ever been taken care of.
All places have their problems. The Bickles have always been nice to me.
Yeah, and it's like, so they always get some sort of something to be like, that's not how it is. That's an outlier. That person's got an agenda. That person's in sin. They're backslidden. They've misunderstood it and we wish they could have walked that out with us better or different or blah, blah, blah. Downplay everything anyone else does or anyone else says about us. Like, it can never be true. It's always a lie. Like, there's always some reason that person's got some agenda. They're the enemy trying to tear down IHOP.
Well, it can't ever be.
Oh no, it's gonna shut down the live in like
why? For
a
you?
few seconds. I guess because we've gone an hour, maybe. I don't
No.
know. We're gonna have to restart it. Come back.